Hey guys. When I was growing up, there were a lot of shows on television that you kind of wouldn't ever see nowadays. One of the shows that I really loved as a kid was Samurai Jack. Now, if you don't know what Samurai Jack is, it's made by, and I never knew how to pronounce his name. I always called him like Trundy or something like that. Maybe that's right, maybe that's wrong. Or, wait, no, I think it was like Grundy. Grundy? Hmm. I forget. Anyways, he's the one who has created Samurai Jack. He created the Clone Wars. It was just called Clone Wars. It wasn't the Clone Wars for Star Wars, which was a. It was a bunch of shorts for Star Wars. Like I think they were only like 5 minutes long, and it was in basically the same style as Samurai Jack. Something very similar to it, anyways. And he created Dexter's Laboratory, and he created Primal. Primal being his latest creation, as far as I'm aware. All of these very good shows, and they're very related to each other. I'm not sure if he created the original Powerpuff Girls, but like I always thought it was interesting that Samurai Jack always looked like Professor Utonium from Powerpuff Girls. But it is suggested that all of these shows take place in the same universe. That like maybe Professor Utonium is the descendant of Samurai Jack in the good timeline, and you can see Dexter pull the main character from Primal into his timeline in order to like show him around his laboratory. And well, I see. Well, besides the Star Wars one, of course, the Star Wars one. Well, I mean, in a galaxy far, far away. So it is possible that Star Wars also takes place in the same universe, since it supposedly takes place in our universe as well. Hey, little tiny kitty kit. Oh, you're so adorable. Yeah, she's walking up to me right now. But like, how I say is like shows like that couldn't be made nowadays anymore. And I don't know how exactly true that is, but it's rare to see a show where a character is openly religious and not being mocked in some way. Now, in the Samurai Jack universe, all the gods are real. So, Samurai Jack's sword is made by smiths that were under Ra, um, Odin, and I think it's Vishtar, maybe? It's the blue Hindu god. And I know there's a few of those. It's not the hero that saved his wife from the demon. Ah, man, I can't think of the name right now. Anyways, Janice, go away. You silly little cat. She's running all over the place right now. She's adorable. Anyways, so Samurai Jack is a show about a samurai, and his father encounters a strange phenomenon out in the wilderness. See, in the past, there was a fight between a creature of pure evil and the gods, and it is defeated and heavily wounded. Its memory is basically destroyed, as far as we're aware, and it crash lands on Earth. And eventually it forms what basically looks just like a normal tar pit, made from like underground oil seeping to the surface and mixing with dirt and water and other debris, causing a very sticky substance. And in the middle of it grows like a sort of corrupted tree that has unnatural right angles to it. And anything that comes near it is consumed. And eventually this curse is found by Samurai Jack's father. And he comes and tries to purify it with some potion that his people created. And all this does is that it unlocks the seal that it was on the creature. Now, while the original creature was destroyed, its malice and evil was still inside of it. So the creature formed a new body, again without its memories, but with much of the magical powers still intact. And it formed a creature called Aku. And this creature then goes and captures Samurai Jack's father. And then he goes and starts to destroy um, Samurai Jack's village with the wife and child of Jack's father. Obviously, Jack and his mother. And basically, the Emperor, that's Jack's father, prays to the gods and is given relief. He is freed from the tree, and they find that while they destroyed the evil, they couldn't destroy it entirely. And now that it is taking part of mortal affairs, they can no longer intervene. So they need a champion to do it for them. So they create a sword from the goodness inside the Emperor's heart. And this sword is the only thing that's capable of hurting Aku. Now, partially because it's magic, but also because it is a weapon of pure good against the creature of pure evil. And why I say that this is like a show that you couldn't make nowadays is because you have a creature of pure evil, a complete one-dimensional villain, who nonetheless is an absolutely hilarious character, while being irredeemably evil. Like every time we see this guy, he's always cracking a joke or saying something off the wall and wacky. But when he faces or when he deals with other people, he always breaks his promises and destroys people's villages, even when it does him harm. Even when it would behoove him to not destroy the villain, like destroy the villages of the people he hires. He does it anyways, just because he finds it funny. Whereas Jack and the Emperor are absolutely pure good individuals. They have they get angry, they get frustrated. They may not always say the right thing. They may not be the most social people, but they're honorable individuals, and they always try to do the right thing in all cases. So in the show, the Emperor goes with the magic sword, flying on a magic cloud, basically like the Nimbus from Dragon Ball Z. Actually, that's from the original Dragon Ball. It's not in Z very often, but you know what I mean. And then wearing magical armor. And he goes and defeats Aku and absorbs the evil into the sword. Basically, it seals him inside the sword. And then he drives the sword into the ground, causing Aku to revert into a tree. And then he lives his life, he gets old, and eventually Aku comes back when Jack is but a child. I'm not sure if Jack's actually alive. I don't think he's actually alive when Aku attacks the first time. But when he comes back, Jack as a little kid, he might have been a baby. Jack as a little kid is taken away from his home and given to like Tibetan monks, basically. And he's trained by them, and then he's taken around the world. He gets trained by what it's applied to be Ramen Hood. He's trained by Aboriginals. I believe he's trained by like an African tribe. And he's trained by the Vikings. He's trained by basically every major warrior culture throughout the world in every different technique imaginable, from using swords to using bows to using spears to using poles to using to having armor with weight training, having rocks tied around him. He does do that more later on in the series, where he learns to jump really good, which is a pretty funny episode, if I do say so. And then he comes back overconfident, knowing that he's the best warrior the world has probably ever seen. But he's justifiably confident. Unfortunately, though, he does get careless, and when he defeats Aku, and after freeing his people and his father, who were being used basically as slave labor, and his mother was living out in the mountains in exile, he goes to the mountains and he defeats Aku and he absorbs him in the blade. And then, as he is about to finish him off, he takes the blade and he slams it into the ground, and Aku slithers out of it. And then he only has to hit him one more time to completely destroy his essence. And Aku uses this very moment to send him into the future. And the whole show is just about Samurai Jack facing different villains throughout the entire world. After Jack has uh, been trapped in the future, much, much later into the future, where Aku controls the entire world, and it is implied that he may even control worlds outside of Earth. I almost said outside the United States, outside of Earth. But his focus is mostly on Earth, and people come from all over the universe in order to use his to get access to his resources and to make deals with him, and he often betrays them. But for the people that he forgets about, because he won't betray you if he forgets about you. That's the kind of villain we're talking about. Somebody that just loves mayhem and destruction, and if you no longer amuse him, he will not mess with you anymore. it's, it's a pretty great show. And again, it's a show that I'm not sure could be made anymore, simply because there's no ambiguity about who's the villain. There's no good side of the villain. There's no sympathetic motive. There's nothing that makes you really feel bad for him. Like, he's just irredeemably, irreversibly, unabashedly evil. Whereas the hero is the same thing but good. And not only that, the main character is very openly religious. In fact, one time in the first season, he only defeats his foe because he has to pray openly to the gods to give him strength. And he is granted one opportunity, one blow to destroy his final opponent. And he manages to do so with divine intervention. It is a very good show. I would recommend it to anyone who would watch it. I mean, Dexter's Laboratory, Clone Wars, and it's not the Clone. So if you look up the Clone Wars, you'll get like the Clone Wars animated series, which is like an 8-season long series that came after Clone Wars. I think it's just called Clone Wars. And then if you watch Primal, I said Dexter's Lab, and then my brain is skipping on the other one. I mentioned it earlier. They're all very, very good shows. And this one really stands out amongst the rest because it was a show that only got 4 seasons, right? And even decades later, like it was like a decade or 2 decades later, they finally came up with the 5th season. And what made this really cool is it was so popular and the new season was so good that they even talked about making a prequel showing Samurai Jack's actual training instead of like just the montage that we got in the first episode. It would also be interesting to see what happens in the 50 years between. Well, it's hard to tell because the 4th season, between the 4th season and the 5th season, there's a time jump. And we don't know how long that time jump is because we don't know how long the 4 seasons actually took place. It was at least more than a year, definitely. But one of the cool things about the episodes is that the episodes are listed like in Roman numerals, like V, etc. And then they're listed in order like that. I can't remember how many episodes are in each season, but when the 5th season starts, it starts with like 95 or whatever. So there's like 50 episodes that are skipped between season 4 and season 5. It would be kind of interesting to see like those hypothetical episodes because that's how they show that there was a time skip, is that a lot of the numbers in the sequence are skipped. And man, it's such a good show. I just wanted to just gush on how wonderful the show is, and YouTube seems very happy to show me more clips of it, and I'm very grateful for that. I don't know if Cartoon Network barely exists anymore, as well as Adult Swim, Toonami, and Boomerang, but the I wonder if like whatever executives are in charge of the Cartoon Network property is like now trying to push like clips of it to see if like the hype is still there for a prequel, because prequels can be kinda strange because unless you can make them really interesting, you know exactly what's gonna happen. Like Samurai Jack's gonna go through. He doesn't have like any scars as far as we can tell on his body, and he never even develops any scars from all the years he's been fighting Ku in the future. So it's not like he's gonna get like super heavily wounded and he's gonna be left with some like lasting memento that's like a call forward to an episode where we see, oh my god, he's got like this huge scar on his leg. Oh, that's how he got it. No, we know exactly what's going to happen in the prequel. It's just him going to be a training montage and defeating various enemies. I think at one point he even like fights with the Mongols. And it's kind of interesting because he fights with a lot of cultures that are very morally ambiguous, but he learns to respect all of them. And he respects those who have honor and do what their families dictate. So even if they're doing something that's like morally ambiguous, as long as they're holding to their own traditions, he is a little bit more lenient on them. For instance, in the first season, he finds the king of a former Viking kingdom that had been trapped deep within the earth in a crystal by Aku, so that he could watch as Aku destroyed everything that he loved. And this man eventually learned, after like hundreds of years, to manipulate the rock around him. Because the crystal's magical and some of the magic like seeps into him or whatever. And the crystal, even worse, the crystal is created in such a way that it makes him immortal. So after he learns geomancy, he starts to make a bunch of traps, and the traps eventually get the attention of travelers who spread word of a death maze, and he lures a whole bunch of warriors to come to defeat him. And in this episode, Jack finds him and is angry, very angry, that he is destroying all these warriors, some of which may have been very noble and honorable. And eventually he just like gives up. Not that he can't beat the guy, but he's just like, I'm not gonna fight you. This is not worth my time or effort. I'm just gonna leave you here. And the guy's like, look, listen, I am a Viking. Like, I need to die honorably in battle. Like, and it's hinted that he doesn't want to kill these warriors, but he has to go all out. He can't just allow himself to be struck down, because that is not an honorable death. He would not be accepted into Valhalla if he were to just stand still and let himself be destroyed. So he has to give it his all. And the only thing is that he's just so powerful now that all the warriors that come to him simply cannot keep up. And he cannot just let them go because it would dishonor them as well. And it's kind of like maybe some of those warriors would have preferred to have been spared. But from his perspective, he is granting them access to Valhalla. And he like basically apologizes to Jack, and Jack's like, okay, I'll do it then. And he fights him to his fullest and destroys the guy at his very best, allowing him to move on. He breaks the crystal, and suddenly, just like Shazam from DC Comics, all the age comes back to him, and he just rapidly ages to his natural age until he crumbles to dust. Oh my god, it's such a good show because a lot of the like nuance and character driven stories are not by Aku and Samurai Jack themselves. I mean, they do have like I wouldn't say like Aku has a character arc, but he learns, he grows, he kind of becomes a better villain as time goes on. And Jack becomes more and more attuned to the future that he's trapped in, and he becomes less naive. He comes across all these strange people and strange cultures, and he learns to understand and to accept them. But he does not tolerate evil in any form. If somebody is like enslaving some peoples, he doesn't just like, oh, well, that's just the way you live and moves on. No, he will free the slaves and take care of the evildoers. He will never compromise his morals, but he will understand if someone is doing something due to honor or because it is the way that their people can get like true fulfillment. Whereas, like, he knows when a culture is doing something that they don't have to do. Like, enslaving people. They don't have to do that. There's other ways that they could do their own labor. It is not necessary for them to enact these cruelties upon other people. It's a very libertarian view, basically. It's like Jack is a very leave and let live kind of guy. As long as you're not hurting other people, he's okay with whatever it is you're doing. Now, he will be disgusted if you're like sacrificing your own people as well. Like, he was disgusted in the 5th season by the Daughters of Aku. Because, I mean, it's implied that he kind of understands the backstory a little bit, that they were, basically like a death cult. But he still pities them. And that's like one of the nice things. He pities a lot of the villains that he faces, and he lets them live if they're willing to surrender. And even when they're not willing to surrender, he'll sometimes let them go as long as they're no longer a threat to him. It's just such a great show. I highly, highly recommend people go watch it. The 5th season, so the original show was on Cartoon Network, so one thing they had to do was that Samurai Jack could never openly kill a living person. And they could show blood, but they couldn't show bleeding. So like when he would get scratched, you would see like red marks, but the blood would never like fall out of him. It would just be on the surface of his skin. So they couldn't show him killing people, so he was always killing robots or killing aliens of some sort or another. Where it kind of adds to his whole humanity. And when the new season came out, it came out on Adult Swim, and it was actually shocking to actually see him draw real blood from a real person. Oh man, it is such a... I don't want to spoil how that happens, but it is just such a good scene. It is awesome. Go watch it. Go watch the entire series right now. It is so good. Anyways, before I keep rambling on and just how amazing the show is, I'm going to leave it there. Okay. Bye, guys.